This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Dawes.
Here we go again, after another week off.
Yes, another week off. We don't care, do we?
No, we don't give a damn.
We don't care.
Don't give a damn. We are mavericks.
We are reckless. We don't. We absolutely. Well, a week off. I've had a week on, and you've had a week off. We're working, just in case the listeners think we're just lying around in the sun, which we could very easily be doing today because the weather is marvellous.
Well, we both were.
I thought we'd get it out of the way early doors this time.
We both were, though. I've been lying in my garden on the sunbed writing my next book.
Yes.
And you've been lying on a cruise ship. So.
Well, I wouldn't say
they're both
lying
working,
on a cruise ship.
technically.
I mean, I was sort of technically working on a cruise. Had a wonderful week.
Semi-recumbent.
In the Mediterranean, giving talks upon the good ship Aurora for P&O, which is absolutely wonderful, and taking my books out there and having a marvellous time. A wonderful ship, and visiting Corsica and Alicante. I can see Adam's face going,
No.
Yeah. Some of us have got to stay here.
I was just waiting for you to stop so I could ask you what the difference between a ship and a boat is.
Well, the fact is that if you are on one of these ships and you call them a boat, you are asked very swiftly to walk the plank. They're very particular about that, and understandably so. I mean, they're huge.
They don't call them vessels.
No.
Instead, they're not quite that pretentious.
No, I mean, and this isn't even one of the super big ones. I mean, this has the Aurora has about 1,800 passengers and about 900 crew, which is, to my mind, extraordinary. But some of the ships, nearly said boats, some of the ships, certainly being launched in the States, they've got about room for 5,000 passengers. I mean, they're massive.
There aren't that many people in my town.
No. But, I mean, there's certainly enough people on this. It never seems crowded. I mean, apart from maybe when it comes to food in the... there's always a big... It's too nice for... It's not just a canteen. It's a restaurant, self-service restaurant, which has to cater for, 18,000, 2,000 people.
A buffet.
A day, and a 24-hour... And that's that thing about cruising, that you're always eating.
This is sounding better and better.
Yeah, well, it is. Apart from the simple fact, when I'd been away on these, I tend to eat less.
Oh.
Because the food's always there.
I guess because the food's always dreadful.
Well, actually, the food's always brilliant. I mean, certainly on the P&O ships, which are the only ones I've ever been. I never cruised before I started doing a few of these little talks.
You're about 4 this year now.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing any more.
You're not?
I don't think so.
Pass them my way.
No, I will. Absolutely.
Give them my number, yeah. Well, that won't help Partners in Crime any, would it?
No, well, I don't know. It gives us something to talk about. We've dealt with the weather. We've dealt with our week off.
Yeah.
And now we're going to be starting looking at something to talk about crime-wise.
Shall we deal with the elephant in the room?
Yes.
While we were away, Line of Duty finished.
Yes. I caught up with it the day before yesterday.
Yeah. Thoughts?
My thoughts were always brilliantly done, superbly done. I had guessed who the culprit was.
Yeah, I think most of us had.
Yes, well in advance, and I don't think that particularly mattered. It was the unravelling of it, and I have to say that there was Adrian Dunbar's central performance. I mean, they're all excellent, but Adrian Dunbar's central performance as Hastings was
really shone in this series, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's a remarkable actor, and you could see every moment of his pain and shock, and also had the brilliance to suggest that maybe he was guilty. He kept us hanging on there, which is very hard to do for any actor, certainly in the way that things are filmed, because very often filming schedules dictate that you have to film scenes chronologically out of order. So, I mean, I very often turned up to do a job and I'm filming the very last scene first. So it's very difficult to actually hang on to exactly where you are. And he did it wonderfully, and was, I just think one of our finest actors. And I guess I did enjoy it. I haven't seen any of the reviews for it, but it never disappoints. I've heard some people have some strong feelings about certain aspects of it, but for entertainment and keeping you on the end of your seat and keeping you guessing, and the chance to watch some fantastic ensemble acting, I think it's superb.
Well, Line of Duty is back next year. We know there will be a 6th and final series.
Yes, the resolution.
There is another member of this odd little group and cartel to uncover. And
Well, we must know who it is, because they're not going to introduce a character.
I've got an idea.
You've got an... Well,
more about that off air.
Have you? Do you? What do you do for a living, by the way?
This is the problem. I guess it's a little bit like if you're a magician, you don't get any real joy from watching magic shows because you either know how it's done, or you're too busy sitting there trying to work out how it's done. You can't actually sit back and enjoy it.
No, I suppose not. It's like a master chef sitting down to watch Come Dine With Me.
Yeah.
Unless he or she treats that as an out-and-out comedy series.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to just, let that side of your brain go and enjoy it, haven't you?
A lot of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
I wouldn't know anything about that. But there are other things that are returning before 2020. One of them is actually already returned. Last Saturday, the Canadian crime drama series Cardinal has returned to BBC4 with a new case involving a double murder. This is from crimefictionlover.com. We were looking at this and kind of browsing through it. It seemed familiar. It seemed like something I thought I'd watched, but I'm not entirely sure I have. I might have caught some of the first series, but from having had a look at it and watched a trailer and read a bit more about it, it sounds actually really quite interesting. You haven't seen it either, have you?
I haven't seen any of it.
No, so I'm not entirely sure why we're talking about it, but it
no, exactly.
Very interesting.
Well, the pictures look very good. Who does it star? It stars Billy Campbell as Detective John Cardinal.
Yes, reading this straight from crimefictionlover.com, all credit where it's due. They say Detective John Cardinal, Billy Campbell of the Algonquin Bay Police, is a broken man. At the end of season 2, his wife committed suicide after a long struggle against depression. Cardinal keeps turning it over in his mind and begins to suspect she might not, in fact, have killed herself. The main problem with the murder investigation is that there are no bodies. Initially, the police find a bloody murder scene with forensics indicating there have been at least 2 victims. It's not clear whether Cardinal is in a fit state to investigate the 2 murders, so his partner, Lise Delorme, I'm guessing that's pronounced, is portrayed by the equally unpronounceable Corinne Vanasse, takes the lead, and her workload is added to with a series of robberies that take place at ATMs in the town. And it carries on from there. It sounds really good, actually, so I'm going to go and have a look at that. So
where would we be without BBC4 in the UK? I mean, they that Saturday night slot, they really have brought us international crime series of extraordinarily high standard again and again and again.
And Spiral.
And you see, you knew where I was going with this. Yes, and Spiral, and I can't wait for that to come out shortly. But yes, I mean, that's very good. I don't know what platform Cardinal is shown worldwide, but it sounds like something I'm in the mood for a really good crime series, so I'm going to give that a go this evening, actually.
Well, the books are the series is based on the books by Giles Blunt. His 40 Words for Sorrow is the first book in a Cardinal series, and it's rated as one of Canada's top crime novels of all time.
Oh, right. Which you would be able to get somewhere, I would have thought.
Yeah, if you wanted.
Maybe that's where we should start, with Giles Blunt's 40 Words for Sorrow.
Yeah, let's do that. The first in the Cardinal series. You can get that from kobo.com.
Can you?
Yes, one of the world's greatest ebook retailers. You don't need an e-reader or any special device to read those books. If you're listening to this podcast, you can read the books on exactly the same tablet or phone or computer. Just download the free Kobo app. And if you want to get Giles Blunt's 40 Words for Sorrow or any other books, maybe one of ours, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, then head over to kobo.com, find the book and enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and they'll give you 90% off of your first purchase. If you've already used that, you can use the promo code PARTNERS, and they'll give you 40% off of all your ebook purchases for life, and thank God I remember those after a couple of weeks off. In terms of what else is returning, you were very excited to see this in news, Bob, weren't you?
Yes, I was, yes, very.
It's the return, after 13 years, of Thomas Harris, who's actually only written 5 novels.
Wow, but what novels?
Yeah, well, 6 now, because his new book, Cari, Mora, is out 13 years since his last novel. The creator of Hannibal Lecter has started something completely new. The beautiful Cari Mora is an immigrant working as the caretaker of an expensive property on Miami Beach. I'm going to have a quick look here. It says $25 million in cartel gold lies hidden beneath a mansion on the Miami Beach waterfront. Ruthless men have tracked it for years. Leading the pack is Hans-Peter Schneider. Driven by unspeakable appetites, he makes a living fleshing out the violent fantasies of other, richer men. Cari Mora, caretaker of the house, has escaped from the violence in her native country. She stays in Miami on a wobbly temporary protected status, subject to the iron whim of ICE. She works at many jobs to survive. Beautiful, marked by war, Cari catches the eye of Hans-Peter as he closes in on the treasure. But Cari Mora has surprising skills, and her will to survive has been tested before. Monsters lurk in the crevices between male desire and female survival. No other writer in the last century has conjured these monsters with more terrifying brilliance than Thomas Harris. Cari Mora, his sixth novel, is the long-awaited return of an American master, says his publisher.
Well, I'd say it too. I think he is an American master. I mean, he's such a rich and detailed and wonderful storyteller. So I'm beside myself. I'm going to get that straight away with my Kobo promotion and devour it.
Well, by the time we go to audio, that's not even a phrase, is it? By the time you're listening to this, that book will already be out. If you're listening to it on Friday, it came out yesterday, on Thursday, 16th of May. So, if you were to order that now, Bob, you'd have that.
Right, well, I'm going to do it. So,
I was going to say, Stephen King has described this very well, actually. He says, as good as ever, reading his prose is like running a slow hand down cold silk.
Beautifully put. By another master.
That's what you want on your cover, isn't it?
That is what I want on my cover, yes. That's
your silk colours.
Well, we all live in hope, don't we?
Yeah. So, exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Thomas Harris back again. I can't believe he only wrote 5 novels.
6 now.
Well, thank you. Then again, I suppose, with the ones that he did write, Silence of the Lambs, and so on, you wouldn't necessarily need to write anymore, would you?
Well, some people don't, and some people maybe write well beyond their best years.
Tell me about it.
And some people keep writing until their best years arrive. You just never know.
No,
but I mean, he's I think taking 13 years to think about your next novel is I mean, it wouldn't suit
something
you.
to aim for.
But it would be well worth it.
It would suit me at times. I think I could get a lot of gardening done in 13 years. I could visit a lot of pubs.
Yes. I have to say, I noticed your front garden today. It's outstanding.
Oh, thank you. That's the one I haven't touched.
Some of your neighbours must look at you and go, ooh. Look what he's done now.
Yeah, I think that's generally what most people think when they look at me.
Right, well, anyway, I'm going to go on to a couple of my recommendations, and I'm going to recommend things as I've recommended to you before. Why, you may ask?
Because it saves you doing any preparation.
No, I'll tell you what it means. I was on board the Aurora, as we've already established, and it has a wonderful library. And I was looking at the library and all these books that I thought I should read, and I came across 2 that I read last year and reviewed on this show. And for some reason I thought, I'm going to read them again, which is something I never do. And I'm so glad I did. The first one was All That Remains, A Life in Death by Professor Sue Black.
Great book.
A very good friend of Val McDermid and an advisor on her books. It's the incredible memoir from the Sunday Times bestseller. Professor Sue Black breathes new life into the subject of death. Sue Black confronts death every day. As a professor of anatomy and forensic anthropology, she focuses on mortal remains in her lab, at burial sites, at scenes of violence, murder and criminal dismemberment. And when investigating mass fatalities due to war, accident or natural disaster...
Mass fertilities?
Did I say mass fatalities? Accident or natural disaster, in All That Remains, she reveals the many faces of death she has come to know, using key cases to explore how forensic science has developed and examining what her life and work has taught her. Do you expect a book about death to be sad, macabre? Sue's book is neither, and it isn't. There is tragedy, but there is also humour in stories as gripping as the best crime novel. Part memoir, part science, part meditation on death. Her book is compassionate, surprisingly funny, and will make you think about death in a new light. And it does, for me anyway. one of the things that there's no nonsense with Sue Black. She's one of our finest. Well, she doesn't call herself a scientist, although she's a professor, but she is the go-to person for many of our top crime writers, and her vast experience in dealing with deaths, murders, investigating all sorts of areas of darkness around the world, including her visits to the mass graves in Serbia. I mean, it makes her extraordinary and at times grueling read. But alongside this is what I found, is there's this approach to death, which she sort of criticises, and I believe rightly so, that in the Western world in particular we tend to have a hands-off approach to the subject of death. It's not really talked about for fear of actually bringing it closer to us. But she points out something we all know, that it is the one inevitable thing that happens to us all.
Death and taxes, they say, don't they?
Death and taxes.
Unless you live in Monaco.
Well, exactly. And then it's, yes. And so I was drawn to reading this again, and I find it very moving. It was a very moving book, and her understanding of humans. She has a wonderful description of human beings. Let me see if I can remember it. She says, humans are beings of consciousness, solar system dependent, lacking in knowledge, carbon-based, prone to error, and mortal. Now, that may not be your particular standpoint. Some people would actually add that there's a spiritual element to people, but I
would go for best avoided. That would be my description of human beings.
Best avoided, well, yes. But I think it's a very profound work, and certainly is a must-read. I've been recommending it to everyone because I think there is much to learn from her approach to not only the whole process, but how we deal with death. She goes into how people are buried, even to the extent that cremation, which is now the major way of that people choose upon their death, is polluting the skies. Burials underground are polluting the earth because of the amount of chemicals that are used in pumped into bodies, and how we are literally running out of space. People are buried on top of each other. She says there has to be new ways to deal not only with the tragedy and emotional response to death and the understanding of that, but also the actual practical things of what death is and how bodies are laid to rest in a respectful and environmentally friendly way. So it's a fascinating book. So please, if you haven't read it, do. Along the way, for crime fiction lovers, there are many incidents of her investigations into murders, etc., which are, as ever, absolutely fascinating. So that's All That Remains, A Life in Death by Professor Sue Black. The second book I found in this library, and was happy to devour for the second time because I so enjoyed it the first time.
Is this one going to be a little bit brighter?
Yes.
Good.
Sorry, I've depressed the hell out of you.
Say what you like about Robert Dawes. He knows how to bring down the mood.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is going to bring it up a little bit. Described by the wonderful Claire McIntosh as the best courtroom drama since Apple Tree Yard. Some of you may remember that I recommended wholeheartedly Sarah Vaughan's Anatomy of a Scandal. Definitely plotted and superbly well researched, with an eerie relevance to the current debate surrounding the attitudes to and experiences of women in Westminster, Hollywood and beyond. An intelligent, absorbing page-turner that avoids all knee-jerk assumptions and easy answers. And I picked this up because I'd so enjoyed it the first time, and I particularly was impressed by its structure, looking at it from a crime writer's point of view. So I wanted to study that a bit better, and it really is masterfully done. A high-profile marriage thrust into the spotlight. A wife determined to keep her family safe must face a prosecutor who believes justice has been a long time coming. A scandal that will rock Westminster and the women caught at the heart of it. Anatomy of Scandal centres on a high-profile marriage, that of a politician and his wife, that begins to unravel when the husband is accused of a terrible crime. Sophie is sure her husband James is innocent and desperately hopes to protect her precious family from the lies which might ruin them. Kate is the barrister who will prosecute the case. She is equally certain that James is guilty and determined he will pay for his crimes. A compelling and cautionary story about how we can never truly know someone else. So, and it is a courtroom drama, but it's so much more than that. It's about an up-and-coming politician, from a very privileged background, Eton and Oxford, who is accused of rape. And Sarah Vaughan, I think, deals with this very sensitively and makes many points about the corruption of power, how certain people born into certain areas of life assume that they can do pretty much what they want, and they are supported in this understanding by those around them. And it is an interesting insight into a particular male mindset of, as I say, privilege, entitlement, and a belief in absolute power, and a belief in being never wrong. And it lays this bare, I think, in a very interesting way. I don't know what comparisons, where she got her original story from. You have to make up your own mind. Of course, it is a work of fiction, but there must be people who she has experienced behaving in certain ways. I'm not talking about rape, but in the manner of their living and dealing with life and with people. But it is a book of the moment, I think. It does doff its cap to Appletree Yard. It is about an affair. It is about an affair that's or an incident that takes place in the Palace of Westminster, and so there are similarities there. But that's where the similarities end. And Sarah Vaughan's book, I think, is a terrific read and a quick read. I read it in a day again, not just because I'd read it once before. I gleaned so much more than the first time, and that brings me to the reason why I did this. I mean, I could have read new books. I fully accept, was about to say, let's use this week to actually read some books that I've been meaning to for some time. But sometimes rereading a book can be very enlightening and just as enjoyable. Although you know what's coming, you may begin to sort of find so much more. And both these books, Sue Black's and Sarah Vaughan's, offer that opportunity, like all the best books do. So they're my two recommendations for the week.
Good.
Have I cheered you up any? Have I lifted the tone?
Oh, marginally. I was reading in the news recently.
Yeah.
Ellis O'Hanlon wrote in the Irish Independent about recent upsurge in Irish crime writing, which has been known as Emerald Noir.
Yes, we've talked about this before.
Yes, and we've got our own favourites there, from just a hop, skip, and a jump over the Irish Sea there from us. Weirdly enough, even though it's kind of touted as an article about Emerald Noir, actually talks quite a bit about Italian and Scandinavian crime fiction, and the fact that Scandi Noir has got perhaps a little predictable and a little bit kind of cliche in itself now, as every trend does, I suppose, once it's had a few years. It does mention as well that there is still fresh writing being published, especially from Icelandic author Sir Sigurda Dottir, whose latest instalment in her Freya and Holdar series, which is released in English recently, actually, just at the end of April, called The Absolution in English, probes the very dark side of social media. And it also goes on to mention Italy being one exception there, Andrea Camilleri's Inspector Montalbano series, which we both love.
We do.
Which brings me over to another news article that I saw in the Times. They listed recently their 100 best crime novels and thrillers since 1945. They mention Camilleri's August Heat, which is a favourite of ours, favourite of mine. But because it's best crime novels and thrillers since 1945, not entirely sure why they've chosen that as an arbitrary cut-off point, but it does mean it's a slightly odd list. For example, the only Agatha Christie entry on there is Sparkling Cyanide.
Right.
Great book, but
written in 1945.
Yeah, of course there are better books of hers, and you've got quite a mixed list. I mean, either side of that, you've got Killing Floor by Lee Child and The Hunt for Red October by Tom Clancy. Manchurian Candidate is on there. The Andromeda Strain, which I'm not entirely sure was completely a crime novel, but is there anyway. The Ipcris File. The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. So quite a few kind of classics. LA Confidential, Casino Royale by Ian Fleming, the first James Bond book. Gone Girl is on there. The Day of the Jackal, a favourite of mine. Robert Galbraith or J.K. Rowling's At Cuckoo's Calling. There's quite a few. Graham Greene, for example. The entrance there's the third man is the entry from him. It seems to have only really picked one from each author. So Robert Harris, another favourite of ours, got Fatherland.
London
Thomas
Rules, Mick Herron, a favourite of mine.
Thomas Harris, another mention. Silence of the Lambs is on there. Talented Mr. Ripley, of course, has to be on there. Miss Miller's Feeling for Snow by Peter Hoag, which is a Danish crime novel, which I've read, and is very, very good. One of the very early Scandi noirs from the early 90s. There's some really interesting stuff on there. It's worth checking out if you're able to get behind the Times paywall, which is a bit of a pain in the bum. Stieg Larsson, Girl with the Dragon Tattooed, Spy Who Came In From the Cold. I'm going to go right the way through this list, by the way.
Ludlam at last, yes, The Bourne Identity. I mean, is the word thriller sort of important here? Because
crime novels and
lot
thrillers.
Of them, yes,
yeah.
There seem to be many more thrillers than.
I mean, Mario Puzo's Godfather, which is definitely a crime novel.
Yes, and definitely a great book.
Ian Rankin's on there with Hide and Seek, the second Rebus novel. I think Knots and Crosses was the first, I think. So lots on there. Just having a browse through here, just talk amongst yourselves while I'm doing this.
He's basically looking through this for the first time to see if his name's on it.
Oh no, I've gone past C. They've put them all in alphabetical order. Neither of us are on there.
Rats.
Not that we would be, being
I certainly wouldn't be.
Scrubby little independent writers. We're not going to get on there, are we? But also something else which was of note and interesting that I saw in the news, potentially slightly controversial. J.K. Rowling has backed a crime writing scheme for black and ethnic minority and working class women.
Good.
Yes, very good. But it was also pointed out by a few people that in order for her crime novels to be seen of their own merit and to be judged for what they were, she had to write under a male pseudonym. Right. With a very white British English.
How little had changed over the decades and centuries. I mean, that's a very interesting point.
So it's something that, even though she's quite rightly backing this scheme, she's kind of almost been a victim of herself, or at least had to recognise that problem and that issue in society and kind of pander to it for a little bit in order to get her crime novels out there. It's just something I wanted to bring up. It's I'm not quite sure how to approach it. It just struck me that she's kind of been a victim of this herself by having to publish her crime novels under a white male pseudonym.
And even the Harry Potter books with J.K. Rowling.
But exactly, why not write them under
Joanne? Not gender specific,
no.
So that is an interesting point. But I mean, the actual thing she's launching now is extraordinary, and we know we've interviewed someone who will have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, we've. It's. I don't know what the stats are on books that sell with female names, with male names. I know there's this interpretation that it matters. Readers always say it doesn't. Publishers say it does. It'd be interesting to kind of see if anyone's done studies on that to see, whether the name, the gender, or the inferred country of origin actually has any major effect on book sales. And I mean, too many other variables to be able to say for certain, but it was just something interesting I thought that I saw in the news. It was crime fiction related. We've got 5 minutes left, so I thought I'd bring it up and end on another note of controversy.
Yes, well, you like a little bit of controversy.
I get bored otherwise.
Well, yes, you do. But that is interesting. So it's the new scheme aimed at, what's it called? Has it got a name?
It's Killer Women.
An author collective of 20 female crime writers.
That's right, yeah. It's opened its new mentoring scheme recently for unpublished women from underrepresented backgrounds who want to write crime or thriller novels, and rightly so. Completely in support of that. Yes, it's just as I say, it struck me that she's kind of fallen foul of that kind of societal observation that crime novels need to be written by strong male names, and even a name as strong as hers.
It's one of the few areas, crime writing, that doesn't sort of go into any bookshop or look on Kobo, and you'll see just as many, I think, if not more, leading crime writers, the female than men. In fact, very often, most of my favourite writers are crime writers are women.
Which is why I wondered if anyone had done a study, because it doesn't quite seem right to me either. I think certainly people from a ethnic minority background or from working class backgrounds, perhaps it is trickier. The publishing industry, as we know, certainly on the traditional wing, is a very kind of upper middle class plaything, isn't it? So it's to be honest with you, if we're getting more female voices out there, we're getting more black, Asian and minority voices out there, then all the better for it. I know we've spoken to and about quite a few on this programme, and some of our favourite books would fall into that category. So
definitely.
Yeah, bring it on.
So, well, I'm good for JK. I mean, I think she's an extraordinary woman who doesn't just sit on her laurels. I mean, she gets stuck into causes and things that she feels that are important, and speaks her mind. And thank goodness for that. She has the power, and people will listen to her voice. And certainly when she's doing things like that, I think it's very important. So all power to her.
Indeed. We're well over 30 minutes now, so
how did that happen?
We can shut up.
No, well, you might be able to. I mean, you do get a little bit anal if we go over, or if we go under. Just a little bit anal.
It's a rough target. It's not like live TV or radio. We don't have we're not counting down to the top of the hour or anything, but half an hour seems to work. Well, it's the length of a commute.
We've covered some stuff, haven't we? We've had our week off. We've dealt with the weather as usual. We've dealt with your garden as per, and it's just nice to be back. I missed you last week, Adam.
Did you? Don't expect me to say it back.
No, I won't. I'm just actually thinking about what I just said. Yes, I did miss you.
Oh dear. I'm not quite sure how to respond to that.
He's blushing. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, he's blushing. I never
Socially awkward.
Yes, oh, good. That's absolutely fantastic.
I'm going to make the most of the sun. I'm going to take my laptop out on my sunbed, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to carry on writing the 9th Night in Coal House book, which is going swimmingly.
Is it really? It is. Well, good for you. I've just finished your latest Kempston Hardwick, which is absolutely terrific.
Oh, thank you.
So a little punch for you. So yes, you can take your blushing cheeks and put on some ombre solaire factor 30 and finish your writing in that
stop them going even more red.
In that sort of Hemingway manner that you have.
Do I?
Yeah. Well, yes, apart from you don't have a bottle of scotch on the side, you have a sort of a Nesquik or...
these things can be arranged.
Yes.
I don't have to drive later, so you never know.
You've got a birthday coming up, so we'll be able to wade through your stocks.
Oh, yes, thank you for mentioning birthdays. I knew I'd missed something.
Oh, God, no.
The day after our last episode... We celebrated the birthday of yours, didn't we?
Yes.
Which was very good fun.
It was. And it's funny, being 34 again, it's just... I mean, it was a weird sort of...
For the 26th time.
Yes, it's a Groundhog Day moment. I mean, that's how I've decided to have my birthdays. Yes, it was my birthday last week.
60.
Yes. As the tear starts to fall down his cheek.
I did put a little tweet up on the Partners in Crime Twitter account.
Oh, did you? Haven't seen it?
Turned up at your house, standing in your hallway, because it was absolutely full of people and I couldn't really get much further. And I noticed that on the wall in your hallway are 2 framed prints of your book covers.
Yes, they were a present from my wife.
So I had to put a cheeky little tweet up. You can check that out on Crime Fic Podcast.
I live in fear of your cheeky little tweets.
Yes, that's the Partners in Crime Twitter account, Crime Fic Podcast. Go and have a look at that. I found it quite amusing. Then again, I had about 2 bottles of champagne by that point, so I found everything amusing.
It was a very nice party. Thank you very much for coming.
No, thank you very much for having it.
Yeah, so now I can actually get my rail card. I can actually... What else can I do? I get free prescriptions.
Do you?
I mean, who knew? You know, so I mean, it's all go. We wait till you're 60. Yeah, I'm just sort of slipping into 6th gear and cruising, man.
What on earth was that? Was that your phone?
That was my phone.
There you go. This happens when you get old. You forget to turn things off.
Oh, it's just a Twitter review for one of my books.
I think it's time to end that episode.
Yes, okay. God bless.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Dawes and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.